Hey everyone, Matt Perrin from Carallel here. Welcome to the April 2022 edition of our Caregiver Journey webinar series. This month's topic is respite care. So I'm really pleased to have a special guest here with us today to join me for the discussion on respite care. She's been a caregiver herself for 7 different family family members and friends. She is a renowned caregiving expert, syndicated newspaper columnist, author of the book Minding Our Elder, Caregivers Share Their Personal Stories, and creator of the blog of the same title, Minding Our Elder, Carol Bradley Bursack. Welcome, Carol. How are you?
I am fine. So nice to see you, Matt, and thank you for asking me. Nice to have different people on here, and I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, glad you're here and nice to see you again for sure. Just a bit of housekeeping per usual here as we're jumping in case you're joining one of these calls for the first time. My name's Matt Perrin, as I just mentioned. I'm Director of Caregiver Engagement here at Carallel. I'm also a primary caregiver for my mom, Rosemary, who's living with Alzheimer's disease. A little bit of housekeeping. If you're not familiar with Carallel, we're a caregiver support service that's offered as a benefit by health plans and employers across the country. We help caregivers in 2 primary ways. First and foremost, with personal, confidential support on our helpline over the phone or on email and chat. And we complement that one-on-one support with our digital platform called My Care Desk, which is one central place for anyone caring for a loved one to sort of just be a caregiving hub for all things related to that care of the loved one. Collaborate with family and friends, keep task lists, store documents, and tap into loads and loads of educational material. So that's a brief bit about Carallel. Second piece of housekeeping is related to questions in the session. It's a jam-packed session, 30 minutes, Carol, so we got our work cut out for us here. But if you do have questions, please do drop them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them as they come in, and we'll certainly follow up to address any questions and provide answers for any of those that we're not able to get to. All right, so today's topic is respite care. And to get us started, Carol, it's become customary, so to speak, to start with a poll, just to get a feel for the audience. And I'm going to go ahead and launch the first poll and just ask the question: how often do you get a caregiving break? Weekly, monthly, every few months? I don't remember the last time I had a break. Okay, responses are coming in fast and furious. I'm glad to see this. So about half, Carol, half of the respondents here are saying, and we have 98% of the vote in, half are saying they don't remember when the last time they had a break. So 33% are getting breaks on a weekly basis, which is great. And then 14% every few months. Does that surprise you? I guess I'll just ask, Carol, those responses surprise you?
Not at all. I have to say that I can talk a great deal about respite care and all kinds of things that we ought to do, including self-care, and I have never been great at it. I do my best, but I know that respite care is very hard to find and hard to do, because part of it is we need to pay for it. But we're going to talk about all of those different things and different options as we move along. But I'm not surprised one bit that people in general are having a very hard time getting it or having any time to themselves.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I'm surprised either. And the final tally was 57%. I'm just checking here. 57% of respondents don't remember the last time they had a caregiving break. And with 29% getting a weekly break, which is fantastic. Happy for all of those in that scenario, and 14 every few months. So thank you everybody for responding to the poll. Now, our focus in today's discussion on respite care is, as we usually try to do, we really try and stay rooted in the practical. Okay, so what that means in today's discussion is we're going to start at the top and level set on what respite care is for the audience. take a look at sort of the various forms that it comes in or can come in. And then talk, as you mentioned, Carol, we'll certainly touch on options to pay for it, because like everything with caregiving, there is always a financial consideration. And then we'll round this out with, most important, in my opinion, how to find it. Again, you mentioned that, Carol. It's just a very, very difficult thing to find. So that's our focus today. And with that, Carol, can you get us started and just level set for the audience and give us a sense of what respite care is for folks that might not be familiar with it?
Well, respite care is simply a break for everyone. And, that includes the person we're caring for, because sometimes a little different atmosphere or different faces for them can be helpful as well. And especially, I tell people this a lot because we all suffer from such guilt, or most of us do, is that if we're somewhat refreshed, it's a lot easier to keep a smile on our face and be more patient and be a caregiver that's more present. So respite care gives us that little bit of a break. It can be a few hours. Ideally, it could be a few days or a week or more, but we'll take what we can get.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad you called that. That was going to be my question back to you was, so I get that it's a break, but what, what kind of break is it, right? Is it, and to your point, it could be a few hours, could be a day, or a week, or sometimes more. Now, what does respite care look like? I'd imagine there's, it boils down to really only a couple of options. There are, options that take place in the home, where the person receiving care lives, and then there are options out of the home. So in terms of care, respite, getting breaks in the home, what are some of the options?
Family and friends, of course, if you are fortunate to have someone who will contribute. And in home health care agencies, any kind of time you can get a little in-home help. Part of the reason to have them there, we used it for my uncle, and it was the ability that he would be safe while we did other things. Yeah, that's costly, but it helps. Volunteer companions, senior companions through RSVP, those are an option, and becoming more so now that they're getting COVID a little bit more under control. And private companies sometimes have them through insurance companies. This will depend on your type of insurance, or I should say the person you're caring for, their type of insurance. And of course, the veterans, they have some interesting programs, some of which are official, like in-home caregivers, but others are can be volunteers. And there again, volunteers for certain things can be helpful, and that includes, and this would be for an older person who maybe is living with you, but still has a certain amount of cognition and able to get around. Even a senior citizen center could give you a break if, say, they're living with you and kind of you just all need some space. But I mean, they aren't there to be caregivers, but depending on what's going on, they can work too. But volunteers, senior companions, that's always helpful if possible.
Okay. Yeah, and I would imagine, well, if you just step back and think about sort of this whole notion of aging in place, and generally preferable for people, people want to stay at home, right? For a variety of reasons. And in the case of respite care, in particular, I can see the draw for bringing that respite into the home, particularly when the person that we're caring for has challenges with mobility or cognition in some cases. Just that having the respite in the home removes sort of any stress or added thinking or planning or complexity to there's no travel, things like that. So I can certainly see that. And friends and family you mentioned, that's, I mean, the sort of low-hanging fruit, but not all of us have a network of friends and family available or willing all the time to help. However, there's one thing that one of the hardest things for me as a caregiver has been and continues to be, even though I need to do it, is asking for help. Just another opportunity in the mention of friendly and friends in this context of respite, to remind ourselves to ask, because we don't know until we ask the question. I guess is the point. So from there, we've touched on the in the home options. What about out of the home? The first option that comes to mind for me, Carol, out of the home are adult day centers, right? And the draw there to me is there's sort of a in theory a double-sided benefit for us as caregivers, but also for the person that we're caring for, because we get the break as a caregiver, but our loved one gets social interaction and other forms of engagement oftentimes in the adult day centers. Do you have much experience with those?
Just some, and I think they are wonderful. They, like all services, they vary, but you still have to get them there, though many, if you do it regularly, many have a bus, and for some older people, that becomes part of their outing, and they can go around and get picked up. Most of the time you end up dropping the people off. One thing we deal with is and it's getting better since many of them have started doing what they should have done to begin with and calling it adult day services. Some still use the term adult day care, which kind of rightfully makes the older adult think, this is children, I don't want to do it. So I've always advised, especially with somebody with dementia or something, saying you're going to the club or whatever they used to do when they were working. You can call it, you don't have to call it, especially daycare. And even if their sign says daycare, which you could suggest they change, day services helps. But you're going to your club or you're going to see your buddies, and which is what they're trying to do. And they often form little groups and their own tribe there. So it's really great. But I'm a big proponent of that. But there again, it's costly.
Yeah, if it's possible, right? And then, in terms of other options out of the home, do hospitals or hospice organizations offer respite?
If a person is getting hospice care, either in a hospice home or even in their own home, usually they try and supply volunteers to the family. Most of them cannot have their nurse stay unless you're paying extra or something of that nature, but often a volunteer will come and sit with the person. That is generally a time when you could go out, and I think it's an extremely valuable service. These people who do hospice volunteering, I just have so much admiration for them. So, that is one way hospice can provide it. Hospitals, I guess it would just depend on where you are. Many of us have had someone in hospital and we feel like we have to be there 24/7 because they need us, they're distressed. And that's probably not the best time to try and use it for respite. But having said that, there may be times when they're hospitalized for a long period of time and they have really, volunteers or good people coming and going where you can use that for some respite.
Okay. And again, we don't know until we ask, right? In terms of what's available. So just like so much of this caregiving journey, it never hurts to ask the question. And I think back to a hospital stay and the time period after the hospital stay for my mom, and I didn't know, I didn't ask, I didn't, this was a point where I was on the edge, you know, feeling very, very burnt out, and I found out after the fact that there was respite available. So
That's amazing. Yeah, because I haven't run into that a lot, but then I haven't asked either. So
yeah, okay. Now, I guess so, and you've alluded to this. We've sort of covered what respite is, in the home options, out of the home options. Now, and you've alluded to cost a couple of times. How do we pay for it? I guess is the
one thing I
question.
wanted to go back to is that residential communities of other types can at times
Oh, that's
help
right.
too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, not all assisted living or memory care places will take short term, but I just wanted to throw that out because some of them will
Yeah.
do that and take someone for a week or two. That can
Right.
be you have to get them settled, you have to then, you know, and then bring them back home. So for some people it works great, others not, but it is an option.
Yeah, and so great point. And you must have been, I don't know if you were keeping an eye on the questions, but there was a question in the chat here about that. So thank you for mentioning. And I love that you highlighted that you know, different things are right for different people. Is the undertone in your comment there. And the other thing I'd say, not all senior living communities or residential communities do offer short-term stays. Oftentimes when they do, they'll call that out on their marketing material. But you know, again, worth asking the question. You know, so to your point, those can be costly because you're paying by day, by week, what have you. So kind of circling back now to the sort of next session here, or section of the conversation. How do we pay for this? Is it all private pay? I mean, I'm assuming there's private pay option, you know, in all cases, but is that our only option?
That is, in some places, and many, unfortunately, that is the only option. I mean, just to be honest, it is. However, as Matt has been saying, keep asking. And there are the National Family Caregiver Support Program. There may be funding available through them, and Medicare hospice benefits.
So the National Caregiver Support Program, that's administered typically, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, through local areas on aging. Is that right?
And not everywhere, I have found, much to my distress at first, that everywhere does not have an actual area agency on aging. But one thing that if people go to the elder care locator, they type in the zip code of the person they're caring for, they will get a link to their state, and they will see an enormous list of links. And that's where you'll find access often to the National Family Caregiving Association's contributions in your, to work with your state, because so many things are state specific, which is frustrating, frankly, when you're trying to help people, as you know, and tell them what they can find, because every state is so different. But I found actually that's one of the quickest ways to find out what's available in a specific state is to just go to the locator, put in the zip code, and then there you are, and you'll find family caregiver support services. And you know, there are lots of links, so you don't just skim through it. Try some, see, is this what I want? Is that what I want? And you might actually find any number of places where you could try to get respite services paid for.
That's very, very helpful. And I see another question here from an attendee. Would Medicare help pay for any of these? So the Medicaid waivers do. That's Medicaid, not Medicare. So criteria differs, like everything with Medicaid, criteria differs by state for the most part. So you know, on the Medicaid side, it's worth checking with your state Medicaid office. And again, just asking the question in terms of what's available to you know, to help fund or help pay for respite stays. From a Medicare perspective, some, you know, Medicare Advantage plans in some cases, in addition to benefits that, you know, address transportation or meal delivery and things like that, some do offer, you know, adult day center benefits and things like that. So, you know, if you do have a Medicare Advantage plan, you know, it's worth checking your benefits, and you're welcome, audience member. I see the response coming in there to the question. And then, so there must be veterans benefits for respite as well, right, Carol? I would imagine, just rounding out the sort of the question on,
yeah,
on paying for it.
Call the local VA, because as with all of these national services, they'll say, oh yeah, you can get this, but it's going to boil down to what they have, the people they have to send. So if you contact your local VA, some of them are just super helpful, others not so much. I think they all try to be, but depends on, you know, what they can deal with. But anyway, if you call them and ask, some will. Some of them have wonderful services. And if the veteran is on, say they're a disabled veteran with some pension, often a lot of it's paid for. If not, they may or may not qualify, or it may be income-based, because many of the veteran services are income-based, and that would make a difference.
Okay, great. So, you know, so here's where we are right now, and I'm just looking at the clock. We're at 12:23. You know, we've covered sort of the baseline of what respite is, options in the home, out of the home, and you know, some options or at least directions to go in to understand how we can get help paying for this if private pay is not an option, which it's not for many of us. Why is respite important? And the obvious answer there is, as we all know, if we're caring for someone, caregiving is an exceedingly taxing journey in most cases, physically, emotionally, in some cases financially. And so I guess the answer is obvious, right, to the fundamental question, why do we need it? But there's a nuance to it that I'd add, which is, in addition to just the obvious nature of having breaks being important for caregivers, it's really, really important to seek them out before you feel like you need it. It's like an old marathon analogy in my head. You know, they tell you, I've run one marathon, I'll never run another again. But I was told throughout that hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. And even when you don't feel thirsty, be drinking water. Stay ahead of it, right? And the same goes with respite. I didn't believe that at the start. You know, now close to 8 years into my journey, but learned the hard way. So you know, the question isn't necessarily why is it important, because we think that answer is fairly obvious. But it's you know, it's important to push yourself to just seek it out, or at least understand what's available before you feel like you really need it. Does that make sense to you, Carol?
Absolutely. I didn't either, Matt. I think many of us don't. And one of the things is that we often are so deep in what we're doing, we don't see what we need. We're just busy doing, and we can get so exhausted that we don't think about what we need. But you're right. If we go into caregiving, or if we're further in it, maybe somebody else can draw it to our attention. We can start to say, okay, I am going to start trying to do what I can to take care of myself. It may not be ideal, it may not be wonderful and long-term, but at least something.
Yeah.
And you know, one step forward. And if you start investigating, you might surprise yourself.
Yeah, right. And even to your point, I mean, it doesn't sound like much on the surface in a hypothetical, but even an hour of respite can be beneficial, right? That's and again, I say that now, believing it's true. I didn't believe it was true at the start, and there are times when I still find myself needing to be pushed to take that respite, even in those small little chunks. And I've heard, you know, I've heard people, I've seen the phrase out there now, microdosing on respite and things like that, which it's valuable. So we have 4 minutes left, and this is, you know, this is the most important part of the conversation, in my opinion. And we've kind of alluded to it in bits and pieces throughout the conversation, Carol. But where can we find respite, right? Where can we find it? Where can people find it in their local communities?
Again, I mentioned the elder care locator, because that is your master list of what's available in your community and your state, and it's easy to find. It's a government site. Arch is another one, and Matt had this on his list, but archrespite.org is a wonderful site and can help you hopefully find something. And actually, local aging and disability resource center, that looks like it's the elder care located right there, so you can probably just plug that website in for the viewers.
Yeah, I love to I'm glad to hear you mention Arch Respite. I love that site. Our care advocates who are, again, on the phone, via email, via chat, working with caregivers every single day, helping them navigate the challenges of caregiving. We talk a lot about respite, and you know, are often pointing people to Arch Respite, just because the website is really just super informational. You know, really solid consumer guides that go deep on respite and how to find it, and they round it out with their respite locator. So and then the elder care locator that you mentioned, Carol, how do people find that? Is it eldercare.gov?
If they just type, and rather than trying to remember a website, just type in elder care locator. It's a government website. It's eldercare.gov will probably get you there. I think that's eldercareacl.gov, but yeah, just typing in elder care locator, you'll find it. Just make sure it's a government site you're on. And the first thing you'll see after you scroll down a bit is a place to type in a zip code. That's all you need to do, and you type that in and you'll find the state. And then once you go there, you'll see just a ton. Yeah, states vary. Some states have a lot more than others, but you should see a whole lot of resources. And what I love about that then is, you know, those are available to you, not to somebody 6 states away from you.
Right. Yeah, the location is critical. One other thing I'd add on finding respite is local nonprofits. You know, Easter Seals comes to mind. I mean, they're a national organization, but they're everywhere. And so it would also be worth looking at your local Easter Seals operation and contacting them to understand what they have available as well, because they're another wonderful organization who are you know, helping to support caregivers with services such as respite. So and look at that, Carol, we are on the dot at 12:30 here on the East Coast. Any final thoughts on caregivers and seeking out respite care?
You're not only doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the person you take care of. I just really want to emphasize that, because if you're refreshed, it's going to help them. So if you can at all do it, no matter if it's a couple hours, just do what you can, because it's important.
I love it, and agree, co-sign 100%. Well, thank you, everyone. That brings us to the end of April's Caregiver Journey webinar. I hope you found it useful. Stay tuned for information on May's session, which will be coming out shortly. And as always, thanks so much for being here, and all the best until next time. Carol, real pleasure having you. Thanks so much.
Pleasure being here, Matt. Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.